To you, Hans, and thank you for being here. And over to you, my dear friend.
So, hello and good evening, everyone out there, and small group in here. Actually, when I listened to the praise Judy was just describing, my experience was she's not talking about me, but about herself. So, she described herself perfectly. I don't have to do because you did. Um, so maybe humor is a very important law of life. Um, yeah, so I choose this topic, which is probably not very attractive to many, because who likes laws? I mean, it's something which, when we speak about like some benefit or love, or it probably 10 times more people would come. But when, when we speak about laws, it's like laws is seen as something dry and uninteresting, and it's also not just dry, but also like limiting and restricting and um, like even forcing or punishing us, So that's what we usually, when we come in connection with laws, that's like maybe our first kind of reaction to it. And so I won't, I'm a lawyer, so I like this topic, but I like to show a little bit a different side of it. Because, and that's the topic is called the laws of life. And, for many people, each one in practical life, maybe different laws are his laws of life. For some, it may be for tax laws, for others, for divorce laws. For many of us in the last year, it was for COVID laws, right, which covered our life completely. So, but all of these are like human laws and human made. So that is like the first level of laws. The reason for, and we have so many laws. I'm sure you have also in Germany, even the lawyers don't know all the laws anymore. And because it's like an explosion of laws. And the reason behind this is, you will see later why, that the world becomes more and more complicated, and always new things come up, genetic, and now KI, and you have to make laws because otherwise nobody knows how to properly use it, and when things which are unwanted. So these laws, in a sense, are to make society function. That's what they try. Not always successful, but at least that's the aim. And so we constantly have to change them when we found out it doesn't work properly, to improve it. And when new things come up, and when one law is here and has an effect somewhere else, and then we have to again do something about this. And so it becomes more and more and more complicated. And each part of law has become like tax law, even we don't understand anymore. It's so many different, at least in Germany, that even for tax lawyers don't understand it fully. And it has become, because then we get European law and this law and that law, and it all doesn't fit. And then we try to make it fit, and then it does fit even less. And so this is human laws. And we all know that's limited. Um, but laws, another thing why we have not really access to laws, they are very abstract, they are hidden, you don't see them, especially for laws which are more interesting, which I will talk about today, for laws of nature, for laws of matter, and for laws of life. You don't see them, they are behind the sceneries, but they determine everything. They determine how things work. They determine our experiences, our relationships, ultimately our reality in life. And so that's why it's quite good to understand these laws. So do we really understand them? If we would understand them, I think we would be okay. We would have no more questions. Because if we understand the laws, we understand everything that happens. No, it's clear. To understand the laws means the laws, even though they are hidden, but they show us the coherences, they show us the functioning of something, they show us the results, the outcome. And so to know the laws means it gives me in my hand actually a foresight into the future. Because when I know the laws and I apply them or act accordingly, I know the outcome. So to know the laws gives us the opportunity to plan for future. And also to have that outcome which we like. No? It gives us discrimination power and decision power. And ultimately, it gives us security. No? When we know the laws, we know what will come out, so we are secure because we know beforehand. But do we feel secure in our life? Do we feel we know what we have to do? Or do we often have questions like, why does this happen? How could this happen? What should I do? Why this to me? You know, have you had ever such questions? So we constantly have like questions, you know, like that kind. And these questions show us that we don't understand the laws of life properly, or maybe not at all. The point is, if we don't understand the laws of life properly or not at all, we can't react properly. We can't act properly. And we will receive outcomes and results which we don't like, which are not in our favor, right? So did you have sometimes consequences in your life which you didn't like? Many times? Daily? No? So it means we don't know the laws properly and therefore can't act properly and therefore have always consequences which we don't like. That's why it's useful to understand the laws of life. If you understand the laws of life properly, actually you understand life. And so it's, even though laws seem to be something strange and not so, but if it comes to, if you deeper want to see, you will see it's so important, you know, to know these laws. And then, like, there are the laws of nature, and especially the laws of matter. And scientists, you know, they make a lot of effort since hundreds of years, thousands of years actually, to find out the laws of nature and of matter. There are 10,000s, 100,000s of scientists even now, and try to find out more and more in detail how matter exactly works, how nature exactly works. Why? And billions are spent for this research. Billions. Why? Why is this so important? Why we invest so much into that? So much manpower, so much resources. Why? Because when they know exactly the laws of matter, they can control matter. And they are able to use it for our benefit. Right? So they discovered a lot. And that's why we have these little machines. That's why I'm sitting here and you can hear me all over the planet. Right? Why? Because they know exactly the laws of matter now, and they know exactly how to combine them and create all kinds of highly beneficial and interesting things for us, like a mobile phone. I mean, imagine this little thing. It includes hundreds of devices, which we before had, like for each one a separate, like a television and a telephone and a navigator and a camera and a typewriter and anything, and a lamp and a bank and a library. And I mean, it's like everything, is in this little thing. So if you had shown this 100 years before to people, you would have been instantly become God. If they would bow down in front of you, right? Because that was unimaginable. So that comes by understanding the laws of matter. That's why we can produce such things and invent by combining all those laws and thinking about it into going to the depth. So now let's have a look at those laws which really govern our life, which are not so obvious. And I like to start with the laws of matter. So it will be now a bit physics. Sorry, back to school. But I like to share, because we live in a physical world. Our body is physical. And it's important to understand certain physical laws, because they give us already a lot of answers. And maybe we are not so much aware of it. We heard in school some things, but we heard it more abstract and we were not told what that means. So I like to specifically have a look at all the laws which deal with movement. Because we are living in a world of constant movement, of constant change, and that's what impacts us all the time. What permanent happens around us, which means all the changes, all the things, all the situations, all the events create experiences for us, and that is a deep impact or completely governs our life, right? So it's important to understand those laws. It was Newton who discovered in the 18th century basic laws of movement. They are called the 3 Newton's laws. You may have heard in school. But it's good to be reminded to understand also the nature of matter, with which we are dealing all the time. And we may be wondering a lot of things we are seeing in this world. Why is this happening? If we understand those laws, we understand why things are happening. So the first law of matter is from Newton, is the law of inertia. You know inertia? Like matter has the nature of not moving. Matter just wants to sit there and never ever move. That's the law, the first law of matter. right? Second law of Newton deals with acceleration. It says if you want to accelerate matter, like a certain mass, certain weight, for more weight you want to accelerate, for more power you need. So matter, why? Matter has the tendency, as it is, if it's in movement by chance, it wants to stay in movement with the same speed, with the same direction. It doesn't want to change anything. When it stands still, it wants to stand still. If it's moving, it wants to always move the same way and not change anything. So that's the nature of matter. We have to understand this. Third law of matter, of movement. They are called the laws of movement. So the third one is the law of action and reaction, the law of cause and effect. Like if you remember in physics in school, there was this pendula where there were these bowls, these iron bowls with a I don't know, a curl, and then was like beep, and it was going from this way to that way and back and forth, no? So for that they wanted to show us this law in a visible way. That law says it's actually the law which keeps the universe constantly in movement, because every effect has a cause, and this effect becomes the cause for the next effect and the next effect and the next effect. And so the universe never comes to a standstill. This law tells us that the material world is completely fixed and foreseeable. It's determined what will happen in 100 and 1,000 and 10,000 years. If you know the movement of every molecule, its speed and its direction, and if you could know from all matter, you can exactly say in what state the universe will be in 10 years, where each atom will be. So it's all fixed. This law tells us the universe is eternally fixed, right? And that is again boring. No, that is inertia is boring, that it just wants to go the same speed direction, that cause effect, always eternally going on, same thing, also boring. So matter by its nature is very boring. Very boring, really. No? And so this law, you can calculate backwards and forwards. It doesn't have a direction in time. You can calculate backwards and forwards, cause and effect. If a system is on a certain level, the cause and effect always keeps it at the same level. So if you have like a very harmonious world, it will always remain harmonious. It can never become disharmonious because of that law. So, but that are not all laws of movement. There are some more. And these are the laws of energy, how energy moves. It's the laws of thermodynamics. That's how we call it. And there are two of them. The first is that energy can never, it's like energy always stays. It cannot get more or less. It's always the same amount of energy. No energy can be created, no energy can be destroyed or disappeared or dissolved. It's always the same amount of energy eternally. It's also the law of eternity. No, whatever matter is there, whatever energy is there, it was always there and it will always be for, right? So that's that first law. Also interesting. But the second law of thermodynamics is the most interesting material law, because that's the one which really is our problem. It seems. In reality, it's not, but we think it's our problem. Because that law is also called the law of entropy. You may have heard this, maybe not. It's a long time ago, and maybe in physics it came one one afternoon, and then you forgot it again. Like me, I was only reminded later. But then I took a deeper look into it. It is a law which, because the third law for cause and effect, it doesn't have a direction in time. It goes backwards and forward. You just can calculate the whole universe at any time with that. But this law gives time a direction, because it says that in a material system, which is like the earth is a material system, a society is a material system, a body is a material system, a house is a material system, a car is a material system, a country is a material system. Right? So any material system always, that's the law, that's its nature, goes from a state of order always to a state of disorder. It always, and you can see like different attributes from that, order to disorder, from order to chaos, you could say. It goes from concentration to distribution. It goes from concentrated energy, which means from strong to weak, but never from weak to strong. It goes from harmony to disharmony. It goes from purity to impurity. You know, if you look into the world, that is all coming from entropy, like the chemicals which we produce. They have now been distributed in the whole world. You find like poisonous chemicals on the North Pole in the ice. You know, it just is everywhere. You know, that comes from the law of entropy, and you never can remove it. It gets more and more, you know, more and more impure, but never the other way around. And it's like from balance into imbalance. And another one which we would experience a lot is from new to old. So never anything which is old becomes new. I mean, that is clear for us, no? We know these laws somehow naturally because it's our life experience, right? But it's good to be aware that this is a law, no? So in any material closed system, is this valid? It can maximum stay the same when it's not moving. As soon as a system is moving, entropy appears automatically. It can't be avoided. Actually, the whole universe, according to that law, will just end up in complete distribution of every atom, and with completely getting cold and, you know, nothing left. But no energy lost, but it's all just distributed. That takes a long time, but that's where it runs to. So these are the laws of movement. And so it means the law of cause and effect would by itself be neutral, remain on the same level. But this entropy law brings it what we call down. And so then if there is a bit more chaos, then chaos causes more chaos. And because entropy is always taking place, it goes down and down and down and down. You make a graph, it goes down and down and down. You know, it goes from you know, from order to chaos, from strong to weak, from new to old. Do you like that world? This matter. This is the nature of matter. Inertia doesn't want to move, wants to be just sitting there doing nothing, goes only down, goes only into chaos, right? Only gets old, only gets impure, only, you know, loses energy in a sense that everything gets more and more weak. But that's the world of matter, in which we are surrounded by all the time. And if we think we are this body only, we are matter. This is now the present mainstream thinking of the whole world. Then that's what we are. That's what we are. In fact, that should feel natural if we are only matter. Does this feel natural? You know, just sitting around doing nothing?
Pretty appealing.
Only going into chaos? No other direction possible? Only getting weak? Only getting old? Right? But that's the consequence. If we are only matter, which the whole world is now thinking. Now is the question, is there something else? Because obviously, bringing this to that point, it becomes clear that's not the world we like. And that's not what we want for our life, and that's not what seems right. It actually seems completely wrong, right? No, we like to be active, we like to be creative, we like to create order, we like to have cleanliness, we like to improve things to make it more powerful and nice and beautiful and all of that. But nature itself provides only the opposite. No, that's what matter is all about. So then the question arises, is there something else? And there comes in religion, thinking there's a soul and all these things, but is there something? But if we look at it, if that is really reality, I mean, nobody would agree with that this is a good thing. No one in the whole planet. Because what is everyone after on the whole planet? Which is not at all provided by matter. It's things like love and peace and happiness and contentment and wisdom and power and security and freedom and all kinds of things, right? Which are not at all visible in matter, not at all. It's the complete opposite. And so there is the question, must be something else, right? Because otherwise, if we would be only matter, why should we not feel the nature of matter the right thing? We would feel this is right, what I described. That would seem natural, because why should we get any other idea? So if we have other ideas, it means there must be something else, right? And I describe a little story, you like stories, I guess, an experience which I had long time ago. We had actually at the BK's, Brahma Kumaris, a workshop with a lady, and it was a whole day seminar, or weekend, I'm not sure. Anyway, that instructor, uh, there was 60 women and only 4 men. I was one of them. And because I looked at it, so I said, wow. Anyway, she said, now we do an experiment. And for this, I need 4 men and 4 women. I thought, oh no. So I on my free will said yes, because I knew I would anyway, be forced. So I thought, at least let's have a good impression here. so, so, so I volunteered. There was no voluntary, but I knew. So that's why I better volunteered beforehand, at least to make it look good. But normally I'm not agreeing for such experiments. It's totally against my nature. And but in the end it was good, because I learned something. What she did is that when she asked some other one, I need another one, a lady to have, like, to volunteer. So another one chose her. So she was then sat on a chair in front, and we other 8 were asked to sort of position ourselves around her, but according to our momentary instant feeling, not about intellectual thinking, how we should position ourselves, but just what is our first impulse, right? And my first impulse was, and no, this was a beautiful lady. So my first impulse was to just sit in front of her 1 meter and look into her eyes. But then I thought, well, this would not be appropriate for a BK. So I took 2 meters distance and sat in front and faced her. and and then and then all the others, they were like really next to her, directed to her, put her hand on her shoulder and all kinds of things, like very, and everybody really towards her. So I was wondering, what is this, no? And then she said, okay, now second round. All, wherever you are, you can stay, but in next impulse you have in a minute, follow that. I was sitting on the floor and I was thinking, okay, just to sit like this maybe is not the right thing. So I just turned around, but I didn't want to stand up. That was my fault. So I just turned around and put my back towards her. And I noticed when checking what the others did, one was in a corner, everybody was distant from her, turned away and all, but really amazing how scenery has changed totally. Then came the result of the whole thing. She was a very good yogi who was sitting as the 9th person there. And she was instructed beforehand, which we didn't know, from her instructor. And she was told in the first round, have the feelings, the deep feelings. You love everyone. You want everyone close to you and be directed to you. And and all were directed, but we all didn't know. And second time she should think, go away, I don't want to see anyone. I hate everyone. I want to be out. And we all turned away. And I was thinking, I turned around because I just thought I'm lazy to stand up, but because I turned my back to her, and one was really literally in the corner, 10 meters away, standing there. And everybody had turned away from her, every one of his 8. And nobody knew, right? And so that was for me an example, a practical example, that there is something else than matter. Because they can't measure anything, what thoughts which come out, any energy, any electromagnetic waves or anything. There's nothing there. Nothing is discoverable. And yet, it was obvious this effect. Actually, that was an experience which really I was thinking a lot about, because I was wondering when I walked through the streets, thinking I do this decision. Who knows? Somebody passed me, was angry, and I suddenly got his anger and also got angry, and things like that. So how much do I actually decide myself? And it's not happening because others, because here I also thought I have decided for myself, and actually it was her thoughts which decided what I'm going to do. So that was for me a very interesting experience, which sort of made me a bit like wondering, how much, because have this nature to control myself and decide for myself. And suddenly I realized, oh, maybe I'm not. I'm very much governed by others and not even noticing. But it showed there is something else. There is some other energy, we call it spiritual energy, soul, mental energy, which is non-physical, obvious, because you can't measure it, but it's there. And we have many other experiences like telepathy. Somebody says something and we think, oh, I just had the same thought, or somebody is calling us and we just think about that person, that moment. Maybe we haven't even heard for years, or just in that moment we think and he's calling. So many people had such experiences, and so many. So it shows there has a different level of energy connection, and that is the level of energy, you call it soul, spirit, which wants peace, which is after happiness, because matter doesn't have all of this. It has nothing to do with matter. And so that's, there is this spiritual energy. So it also has its laws. And we have to understand the, the interconnection, the interplay between those two energies and how the laws are working in that relationship. Then we can do right decisions and have a life experience as we like it. If we don't have it, means we haven't understood both two sides and its interplay and the laws which are governing it. And here comes the main clue. There is one problem only. One little problem. Why everything went wrong. Why our life is sometimes a disaster, or most of the times, or only a disaster. That's probably the options we have. Most people is now mostly a disaster. Some is only disasters. There's a few who have sometimes disaster and sometimes feel still okay. Nobody is always okay, right? It's constantly things happening, and which sort of is an unpleasant experience. If we understand the laws of life properly, we will never have any unpleasant experience anymore. And so, and the good thing is, the good news, there's only one problem. There's only one misunderstanding behind all the problems. So we don't have to sort out a million problems. We only have to understand one law and how it functions. Or a few, as I mentioned, for physical laws. But there's only one problem with it. There's no problem with the physical laws. Matter is as it is. We can't change it. It's its nature. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just how it is and how it functions. But the problem is when we, the spiritual being who is looking after happiness and peace and contentment and love and energy and power and freedom and wisdom and purity and security and balance and all these things, if that being and all those things I mentioned have nothing to do with matter, right? They are like matter has certain atoms and things that is the ingredients of the other side. So the problem is, the only problem, when this spiritual, non-physical energy, which you may call soul or spirit or being or whatever, when this is thinking, it is matter. That's the only problem. When it's identifying with matter, what I mean with that practically, then it thinks it's the body. When we think we have a body, we think we are matter. And that by itself wouldn't be a problem. The problem is when we think we are matter, unfortunately, we get the whole package. We also get, because they are not separatable, these laws of matter, this entropy, this law of effect, and this also inertia, and all these things, you can't separate from matter. That is matter, how it is. You cannot separate something, its nature from something, right? It comes with its nature. So when we think we are matter, we get the whole package of matter. And then we are exposed to cause and effect. It's in fact not a spiritual law. It's only a physical law. But it has an effect on us the moment we think we are matter. You understand? And even worse, the entropy. When we think we are the body, we think we get older. Have you ever thought you get older? And is this a pleasant future? Do we like it to get every day older, knowing it comes to a point it doesn't function at all anymore? Because older means worse, right? Older means gets more chaotic in the body, gets more disharmonious, gets disturbed, gets weaker, right? You have that experience? Body gets weaker, body gets more disturbed, right? You know, body gets older is just like a general description, but it brings along certain realities. And we don't like them. Why? Because these are the laws of matter. It's the nature of matter, but it's not the nature of us. And so here we have a discrepancy. You know, on one side, our nature is actually obviously eternal. Is anybody here who doesn't want to live all the time? As long as it's pleasant, we would like to live all the time. They make all kinds of operations to prolong life, but we all know they can't stop it. Nobody survived over the last thousands of years, all died. No way. No matter what you do, it comes a bit older, but ultimately it's destroyed. And that is by itself no problem, because it's the nature of a body. It's a physical system, so it will fall apart. It's entropy. It can't go against its own nature, right? But the only problem is when we think we are that system, when we think we are matter, then entropy becomes our experience, unavoidable. And then I think, meanwhile, what is described in religious books as devil, as Satan, as the evil, or all kinds of things, it's actually the effect of a law of entropy. And causing all those negative experiences, which are totally against our nature, And so the only way to come out of negative experiences, which are constantly increasingly getting more and more negative, unavoidable, the only way out is to desidentify from matter. There is no other way, logically. Impossible. So disidentification from matter is the only way out for whole humanity. You know, when we want to change the world into something better, it's the only way. Otherwise, we will suffer more and more from destruction, actually, because the ultimate state of entropy is complete destruction, complete chaos, and it's unavoidable. And the point is also, when we experience entropy in our mind, in our perception, we act according to and with that entropy, which means we multiply the entropy in the physical world with which we are dealing with. Because now is entropy in us and entropy in matter. And so this both play together. Now both have entropy. And so you can imagine what happens. The normally function of would be like straight, slowly, the entropy going down. But when now we multiply it by having entropy in us also, you know, we add to it, it multiplicates and it becomes an E function. So the entropy gets more and more day by day, naturally. So it gets to extreme speed, right? And if we look at the world in the last 5 years only, the rate of change before COVID, and I think it started with COVID, it was like a next, like it went further quickly down, you know. Change was dramatic, and then all the wars started, and things in nature start getting wild, and it's like everywhere things are piling up in a high speed, you know. So we are in a very high speed entropy now. And so the call for solutions are quite big everywhere. You know, people are more and more insecure and in fear and in depression and in horror and in hopelessness and in stress and don't know what to do and where to go and what will happen. And things seem to get worse and worse and everywhere. It does. It does. And it will go even more fast, and it will go even faster down. It will become more extreme. It's unavoidable because the law of entropy tells us. And that's so that means the only way is we have to get the entropy out of our mind. There's no other way, you know. And that's means the de-identification with matter completely, because and what will happen then? Then our true laws will come up. You know, that's why in our writings from our seniors, Murli we call it, it's often said there was a time of paradise which was neutral, which there was no law of cause and effect. Why? Because in the mind there was no cause and effect. So they were completely beyond all the laws of matter. They lived a different law. You know which one? The law of love. That's the opposite of the law of cause and effect. Cause and effect is the physical law. The law of love is the nature of the spiritual being. And there was no one who described it better than Christ. In his sermon on the mountain. Now he says, before, I don't know the English words exactly, but I can describe the content. If you would have a Bible, we could read it properly, but you can look at it. It's a very famous part of, it's the essence of his teachings, actually. So what he says, in former times, we had the thinking of eye and tooth to tooth, right? Something like that. But I tell you, if somebody beats you on one side, hold to him the other side, which is for our thinking totally unfair and unjust and unclever and totally wrong, right? So he says, if somebody takes something away, give him your last coat. And he gives a lot of this kind of examples. If somebody is your enemy, love him, don't hate him. Things like that. So he gives a lot of examples, right? And they are all like, if you think in cause and effect, they are completely opposite. they are sort of turning everything around, right? That's the law of love. It's unlimited. It doesn't react on all these causes. It actually wipes them out by doing the opposite. And interestingly, he says, so that he gives a lot of examples about how others behave to us, what we should do. And every answer is like a challenge. But then he says, but your behavior, there is the golden rule for you, which is, he calls it golden rule. Never behave to anyone in a way which you don't want them to behave to you. So in our dealing with others, we have to behave according to the laws, even of matter. But what they do, we have to behave with love. So he describes in that short sentences exactly what it really means to change from the law of cause and effect to the law of love. And that's the basis of Christianity. That's the essence of it. And so means love is like, it has two aspects. One is giving. So love means constant giving without expecting anything, while law, cause and effect is give and get, always the same, back and forth. Love says unconditional giving and not expecting anything back, right? That's completely different. The opposite of cause and effects. Why? I say the cause and effect or karma is not a spiritual law, it's a physical law. The spiritual law is love. And so that needs to be clarified. And you understand what I'm talking about? No? To get that clear, because this is important, I feel, no? Understand these things properly. And so we can only revise or also entropy can be only like turned back from an energy from outside the system. So if, for example, our house gets older, it gets dirtier, things break. So we have to call someone who brings in new energy and bake some new tiles in it, which are broken, and make some new paint or whatever. It still doesn't get new, but at least it goes against it. So you need energy from outside the system, right? And as long as you are in the system, so when you detach from matter, disidentify from the body, you suddenly get into a position of outside the system, outside the material system, outside the body. Then you can influence even entropy, and you can sort of recover the effects of all the causes which you have put. Yeah, they can be rewinded. All of that can be put right again, but you have to be outside the system. Otherwise, the system just moves according to its laws. And there was a guy, his name was Hermes Trismegistos. You may not have heard from him. 2,000 years ago, he was in Egypt. It's not clear if he really existed, but his laws, the laws which he formulated, are for Hermetic principles, for Hermetic laws, very famous in spiritual circles. And there are people who follow them and try to work with them in their life. And they have these 7 principles. And the first one is for actually for universe is mental, which means mind over matter, you could say. For mind creates matter in a sense. Or second is cause of effect is one. I don't know if I'm all by heart now. Another one is principle of gender, so everything has a male and a female side. Another one is polarization. You have always the 2 extreme poles. Another one is rhythm, like the tide going up and down. And another one is coherence. It's like everything has again 2 sides, as up, so down, and as down, so up, like that. And what else? Like it's all, if you look at them, all of them, the 6 ones are only describing the law of cause and effect, because rhythm and vibration, the law of vibration, everything vibrates back and forth. It's constantly in movement. So all those 6 are actually just expressions of the law of karma. And the first one, mind over matter, is the really important one. If mind is in matter and thinks it's matter, it's lost that law, mind over matter. And then it's caught up in all these polarization and rhythm and vibration and whatnot going on here, right? Cause and effect. But if mind again goes over matter, then it's up above, and then it's not influenced by matter and by the laws of matter anymore, which we find very unpleasant because they don't fit to our nature. Because our nature is 2 things, unlimited and loving. And in matter, everything is limited. Everything gets old, everything gets destroyed, everything changes in a bad way, and we can't stop it, right? So love has this aspect of just giving, not wanting anything, which is totally opposite. And that's what Christ tried to describe with all his examples. And it has another aspect of it, which is closeness. No, so to be totally close to others, which means totally transparent, totally one, they call it. They want to be one, with they want to find a partner and be one, like melt together. That's like the feeling of love, but 2 bodies cannot melt together, They try it, like with a lot of desperation, and that's why so much divorce happens, because it just doesn't function. Right? You can't combine 2 bodies, They will always remain separate. And so that's why if we want to have experience of love, it doesn't go through the body. And that's why they mix up sexuality with love, because that seems to be the closest kind of coming together of 2 bodies for a moment. But it's just a little bit exchange of some little energy of matter. It's nothing really combining, not even close. But they get, because thinking they have a body, they get that feeling for a moment. And that is like, has become such an illusion, And within it is therefore so much violence, because it doesn't function and nobody understands why, But souls have this desire to be close to each other because it's their nature, right? To be very close, to be one walking through the other's mind, like without any fear, without any hesitation, without any blockages or anything, right? But that is only possible if you are out of matter. As long as you are in matter, you are disconnected, because matter can never be combined. Matter always stays by itself. And Therefore, love is only possible in a non-material state. But then it's the most beautiful thing because it's our nature. You know, it is nothing to fear and nobody is excluded and it's totally encompassing everything and everyone. And that's our nature. It's unlimited. And so it's very important, this de-identification from the body. That's the only solution for humanity. Nothing else will work. Impossible. If you understand the laws, that's so clear. And that's why when I came here and instinctively, when they said, you have a soul, not for body. And it's not that you have a body and have a soul, no, but you have a soul who has a body, mind over matter, you know. And then they said the soul is an unlimited small point, which is non-physical, because unlimited small has no more physical expansion. It's not physical anymore. It still has a location in the physical world, but it's not physical. So it's exactly the interface between physical and non-physical. It's the unlimited small point. Nowadays, from my understanding, that is also a limited thinking, this unlimited small point. But because we are fully now in a material thinking, from that point of view, from a pure physical point of view, the soul is an unlimited small point. But from the soul's perspective, that is not relevant. What is from a physical definition its form, right? But to bring us out from the physical thinking, we go first to that point which is still like perceivable in the physical, but which sort of detaches us maximum from the body, which is the unlimited small point. But then when you go to the other side and start getting spiritual understanding and feeling and experience, that doesn't make any relevance, because then you come into your true nature, which is love, which is unlimited giving and feelings and all of that. And then the point is not relevant. It's just like a helping, a stepping stone to get out of all of this. And so that's what we are provided here. But when I heard it, I knew that makes total sense. That's the way out, you know. And that is why the meditations here are very much focusing on that point to first of all become an unlimited small point. You know, that's the way out. And then we talk about love and all of that, which comes through that, right? Which comes up naturally again, because anyway, our nature. So then you understand how these laws work and how they interplay and what happened and what has to be done. And if you understand the laws properly, know what you have to do, right? And then it's, you know, the results. You can foresee it. It's clear. You know, it's not secret. It is not mystical, and it's not strange. It's natural. If you look back to the physical world, into the constitutions of most of the countries, you will find a very interesting point. Normally, they speak of a human rights. So laws don't only bring restrictions and responsibilities, but actually, first of all, they bring rights. Like our constitution in Germany starts with the human rights, which are actually only two. If you break them down, it's only two, which they define. And one is the rights of freedom, rights to speak, freedom of religion, freedom of meeting together, freedom of demonstration, of all kinds of things. And second is equality. You know, like all human and man, same gender, religion, nations, all should be treated the same, no? And state should treat everyone the same and so on. So these are all human rights come from these two. But there are souls, spiritual rights. And this is love, peace, and happiness, and contentment, and all the beautiful virtues. All of they are not in the constitutions. But these are our rights. It's not, it's our nature. Nature is our right. And what you find also in the constitutions is something very interesting. Usually in all constitutions, in the old times also, it was the right of the kings. Now maybe it's the right of a president. And it's the thing of an act of pardon. Act of pardon, understand? Right? So somebody is a murderer, he's put to prison. After some time, the president can say, I let him free. Amnesty, amnesty? It's the right of amnesty. Before it was the right of the kings, and now it's usually the right of a president, for one who's like the more honorable person in a state, for most in a like ethical, the highest. So it says, love stands over law. Law means justice. Justice is a result of cause and effect. It's also the law of justice. But in the Constitution says, ultimately, love is higher than law. That is why there is this pardon or amnesties and possibilities. Because they should stay as long in prison as they have deserved, but he can say no and act on love and let them out, right? So we see that reality is sometimes still shining through in all world. You find that actually. It's almost every constitution has that, and it was fair in the old times even more, right? But it was only the right of a king, not of a judge. And so it's good to understand those things, where they come from and what they really mean. And then we have a clearer understanding of what we really have to do. If we clearly understand the law, and then we know what is relevant and what not, when we do this and think this and do that and act like this, what will happen, and and we can choose. And when we understand properly, we will choose to act always as much as possible from a non-physical identity. Because then we get out of all of these problems. That's the only problem the world has. Simple. Right? If you understand the laws, everything becomes very simple. So I hope I could sort of, to your satisfaction, clarify a little bit what's all about from a legal point of view. And I hope you enjoyed, even though it was a law and laws thing.
I think it was absolutely wonderful, Hans. What a lovely journey you've taken us on through the reason to understand the law is our own freedom in the end, and disidentifying with matter. A wonderful concept. Yeah, very nicely made. Um, I think that we have the possibility of a couple of minutes of meditation,
Okay.
do we? That
Yeah.
would be nice.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
You can just use a few thoughts in this direction, which we just spoken about, which you all know probably, who have heard lectures here. So nothing new. So for the next few moments, I step out of ordinary thinking, and I make the quality of my thoughts very high level, which means unlimited thinking. I take out any limitation. I take out any restriction, anything physical. Because ultimately I'm non-physical. My nature is eternal. I'm an eternal being. What does eternal nature mean? First of all, peace. I can be peaceful anytime. There is no reason to be not peaceful. Nobody can decide that I should not be peaceful. It's my choice. But I can only be peaceful if my mind is not caught up in the material. I can live in the material. I can use the material. That's my place to be at the moment. And it's right. There's nothing wrong with matter, nothing wrong with a body. It's actually here for my use. But the moment I get too close to matter, I start thinking I am the body, then I leave the unlimited and I get caught up in the limited, which creates fear, which creates negative feelings, which creates worries, which creates sadness, because I can't find my nature reflected in matter. Impossible. Therefore, I leave this consciousness of a material thinking and I return back to my true nature, which is a spiritual thinking, an unlimited thinking. I am eternal, which is unlimited, which means I can't die. I am unlimited in my qualities. I am always a peaceful being. I'm always a loving being. There is no reason not to be loving because it's my nature. It's everyone's nature. But being in the body, we forgot. We can be in the body and still remember. That's the right balance. Remain unlimited in the limited. I am a powerful soul. When I'm in the body, when I identify there with matter, with the muscles, I lose my power. Even the body loses power because it gets old. But I also block my mental power, my spiritual power, because I'm concentrated only on the physical power. Therefore, by detaching from the body, I regain all my powers. I become powerful again. And then I can direct matter into the right way. In fact, I can put it back into balance and harmony because I'm even more powerful than any matter ever could be. I am the soul. I come from an unlimited world, a world beyond matter, my home, an eternal world with an unlimited inhabitant, the supreme, with all my unlimited friends and family, all souls. Everyone is unlimited. Everything is unlimited. Everything is loving and peaceful. That's why everyone is looking for love and peace. And when there's love and peace, there's naturally contentment and happiness. That's my true nature. And it's easily possible to get there again. Om Shanti.